Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we'll be doing our series preview and predictions for, of course, the Denver Nuggets versus the Los Angeles Clippers. Before we start today's video, I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Who do you think will win in how many games and why? Let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section, as I aforementioned. Now hit that like and subscribe button while you're there for more basketball content like this. And I think it's going to be an interesting one because, man, Nuggets have Jokic, Clippers, arguably one of the best defenses, hottest team over the last 2 months. So let's get into it. We'll start with the Nuggets. So if we just look at the Nuggets currently, this is definitely an interesting one. With the Nuggets are an elite offense. I'd say that's something that if you were just looking on paper, a team that went 50-32 this year has put themselves in position to be one of the better scoring units in the entire league. I'll put up a little screenshot of their stats that I have right here. And if we're just going to speak about their offense, I think the Denver Nuggets have shown that they're a top 3 offense in terms of field goal percentage, scoring 120.8 points per game, true shooting of 60.4%, which is absurd, almost 38% from 3. League average free throw percentage, as we said, that's 60.4% true shooting is absurd. They put up about 32 3-point shots, make 12. They're below average in attempts, but they're above average in their accuracy and league average almost in their makes as a result, while their field goal attempts and field goal makes are at a high volume of almost 90 field goal attempts while hitting 45.4, which is absurd that they hit 50% of their shots. And they are the best passing team in the league, 31 assists a night, which I think the NBA record's 32, 33. So they're right outside there. And technically they have a high turnover rate with 14.3, but they have over a 2-to-1 assist turnover ratio, which to me is something I think is telling when you have a Jokic who's averaging a triple-double. This team, as we've mentioned, is an elite scoring offense, super efficient in the way they do it. They're the best passing team in the NBA. They have a high field goal percentage and are strong at rebounding the basketball, with them being an 11.2 offensive rebounds, 34 and a half defensive rebounds in total, almost 46 rebounds per game. The biggest thing with this team is if you look at their stats really their lineup, if we're just going to pull that up, just because I think it's going to be interesting to see the matchup here. Jamal Murray, we have ourselves, as well as Christian Brown, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic being their main rotation right there. And to me, I think that's a solid lineup that they've had this year as a result of just running it back almost. You have the floor general, late game scorer, and pick and roll partner and DHO partner. They love running DHOs with Jamal and Nikola Jokic, as he's the receiver a lot of times on those DHOs. So is Michael Porter Jr., but he's had a quiet year that I think people didn't really talk about. You had a breakout year from the 3-and-D player in Christian Brown, who has the ability to score as a cutter and as a slasher or as a off-the-ball scorer. Then the sharpshooter himself, 18-7 from Michael Porter Jr. You have 15-5 from Aaron Gordon, who he's just your Swiss Army knife defender who can score at any given moment. Nikola Jokic, who averaged almost 30, 13-10. And when we move to the bench right here, I think this is the other thing that I find the most interesting is they actually have a lot of options here when it comes to their bench. I think they've done a good job with bringing young guys and developing them. I know they've been playing Jalen Pickett a bit more instead of their high usage 6th man that they used most of the year, and Russell Westbrook, who did a good job of driving the bench offense, even though it wasn't the most efficient. They have a weak side rim protector and perimeter defender and Peyton Watson, who I love very much. They have a shooter in Julian Strawther. It can be a little bit streaky, and same thing goes with his defense, but he's a solid guy off the bench. DeAndre Jordan and Zeke Naji and Dario Saric kind of all split the backup center position by committee. We'll probably see more DeAndre Jordan and Dario Saric depending on the matchups, as I think obviously the depth concerns, they've been playing Jalen Pickett, who's been a solid backup point guard with a solid assist to turnover ratio this year. But I think one of the interesting things when you look at this is just the team's impact. So it's definitely interesting to see how that's all played out. Is the bench going to be enough against a Clippers team that I have to admit is pretty deep? So let's talk about that. Now, if we looked at the Clippers right here, I think the Clippers are one of the more interesting squads when we just look at the two squads on paper. They went 15-32 as well, 113 points per game. They're 59% true shooting, which was top 10 actually in the NBA. They're an efficient team. Like, they don't score a ton of points, but the points they do score, they do it efficiently. And I think that's the biggest thing is I've enjoyed their showmanship when it came to their scoring ability. And I feel like they've become an even stronger shooting team that's become more consistent outside as the season has progressed. We already know they're one of the top defensive teams that has had a balanced offense with solid spacing. They're an above average rebounding team with one of the better centers, if not top 5, at least top 10 center in Ivica Zubac, who's led this team to be 44 rebounds a night when in total 10 offensive, 33.5. We always talk about offensive rebounds, allowing them to physically impose their will. They get to the free throw line with James Harden, Kawhi Leonard. They're really efficient in their field goal percentage, the 3-point shooting, and the true shooting. As we mentioned, this is a team 59%, 37%, and 48% from there. They're hitting 41.6 of their field goal. They attempt 86.3. Really good shot diet. 33.4 of those attempts are from 3. They make 12.5 of them. And they get to the line at a solid rate, almost 22 times a game, hitting 17 of them. While if we look at their defense, they're just one of the best perimeter teams. I know, like, they don't put a bunch of shots up. Like, their volume isn't as high as some people would like for a team of their caliber, as they put up a smaller diet. But to me, I think they're incredibly gifted at attacking, suffocating the perimeter, and forcing teams to put up bad shots. And then Zubac just inhales all those rebounds, which is part of the reason why I think it all works out really well for them, because of that, their style that they're playing with. So to me, that's something that I found interesting. Now let's go over here and talk about their lineup so far. I think they've done a good job with the lineups that they put together, with when healthy, of course. I think that's the biggest thing. And another thing is Norman Powell's another guy that I felt like has been just absolutely fantastic for them. Norman Powell being their tertiary scorer and secondary scorer some nights, but they have a 23 point per game scorer, 9 assists, high usage playmaker and facilitator in James Harden. You got Norman Powell being a 22 point per game scorer and a dead eye off the ball, basically being your third star, and then your major superstar impact player, almost 2 steals a game, 50% from the field, 32 minutes a night, 21.5 points per game in Kawhi. Nick Batum's, seemingly they've kind of like been at times using him. I think they like him at times as this low usage glue guy, spreads the floor and defends multiple positions. And Nick Batum, and then Zubac averaging 17 and 13 is fantastic for them. And if we move to their bench, I do like their bench, that the team's depth is pretty broad. And I know the consistency in terms of short shooting is interesting. And they're probably going to go with a 9-man rotation, or even an 8-man rotation of Bogdanovich, Derek Jones Jr., and Dunn, and then Zubac, Batum, Kawhi, Powell, and Harden, because they really run Batum and Simmons as well as their like backup center for Zubac whenever they do that. So if we just look, let me pull up, my apology, I thought I put the bench unit in right there, but we didn't. So when you look at their bench unit, I think that's where it all becomes really interesting, because Tyronn Lue's willing to play different guys. Chris Dunn's an all NBA, all defense level defender this year, averaging 7, 3, and like 2 steals a game almost. Derek Jones Jr. is a 3-point shooter, transition player, slasher, who's athletic and a multi-positional defender. Bogdanovich just came in, been a double-digit scorer off the bench for them, who can shoot and space the floor and actually be a secondary creator. Amir Coffey's been a guy who's just a solid floor spacer, and then Ben Simmons is a point wing defender, and he backup center really for them. So I think that's an interesting part of all of this. Now, if we're gonna just see the Clippers and Nuggets in their side-by-side comparison, I do think their stats are interesting when we put them up together next to each other, as these are two teams that, if you didn't know, match up pretty nicely. They're obviously, the Nuggets score almost 8 points more, but the Clippers are like the best scoring defense. The Clippers literally the most disruptive team on defense in the perimeter, while the Nuggets remain the best offense in terms of volume and efficiency. So to me, when we look at two teams right there, obviously the Nuggets have the edge as an elite offense, but I think the Clippers have been pretty reliable. One of the things that I find interesting is the Nuggets are actually the better rebounding team, but clearly the Clippers are the better defensive team. The Clippers also put up way more threes. So even though the Nuggets are an elite offense, top 5 in points per game, field goal percentage, true shooting, and assists per game, and they're an efficient scoring team without being over-reliant on three-pointers, that has strong ball movement and rebounds as well as an entire unit. Now, these both are squads that don't have good shot blocking and aren't elite defensive interior presence, but they have good rebounding presences. And the Clippers are an elite perimeter defense, one of, if not the best defense in the league this year. They are really balanced shooting profile. They shoot more threes, so they'll be able to keep themselves in any game. Yes, they turn the ball over more, but they're more active defensively. And I think the Nuggets, yes, they're the more efficient and explosive offensive team, built on high percentage shots and passing, while the Clippers are built on bringing defensive pressure, thriving on forcing mistakes, and basically controlling the free throws and who's going to be on the floor. So if you're looking at this matchup wise, I think that's where like all becomes like very difficult to decide who's going to be the winner. And I've said this, the Clippers are a team that, if they can make it, they're a team that could be the dark horses, like that go on a run and they just absolutely thrive and shock people with what they're capable of doing. Now, Nikola Jokic is the MVP, and that's where it becomes hard. I think this is going to be a 6-game series, at least, maybe a 7. I'm going to go with Jokic just because it's freaking Jokic and he's insane, and that's going to carry it. But James Harden, Kawhi, and Norman Powell, they could really just shock the world, in my opinion.